People hear the name Lady Sowell, but they don't always know the work behind it. And I want to be clear from the beginning, this is not a highlight reel. This is not a motivational speech. This is context because leadership, real leadership, is built long before anyone recognizes your name, before journals, before platforms, before visibility. My leadership journey began in healthcare, in spaces where decisions are not theoretical and responsibility is not optional. I work in hospice and long-term care leadership, serving families during the most vulnerable seasons of their lives, moments when clarity matters, when being calm matters, and when integrity is not negotiable. In those rooms, leadership isn't loud, it's steady. You don't get applause for doing the right thing, you get accountability. That environment shaped me. It taught me that leadership is not about being seen, it's about being trusted. And trust is built quietly. Over time, I realized something important. Titles may open doors, but character keeps them open. You can have authority without alignment, but it won't last. You can have influence without discipline, but it will cost you. That's where my faith became more than belief. It became structure. Faith taught me order. Faith taught me restraint. Faith taught me how to lead without performing. I did not add faith to leadership later. It was always the foundation, because when pressure is high and answers are not obvious, what you believe determines how you decide, and leadership decisions ripple outward. They affect families, teams, organizations, communities. That responsibility changes how you move. Eventually, I recognized a gap. I saw leaders who were capable but exhausted, caregivers who were committed but depleted, people doing meaningful work without sustainable systems, and I knew something had to change. That's why I began creating journals, not as inspiration, but as tools. Tools for leaders who carry weight, tools for caregivers who give deeply, tools for people who want alignment, not burnout. These journals are not decorative, they are functional. They are designed to help you think clearly, reflect honestly, and lead intentionally. Because clarity is not accidental, it's cultivated. And leadership without reflection becomes reaction. The Lady Sowell brand exists because leadership deserves better language and better structure. It exists because caregiving deserves dignity, not silence. It exists because too many people are doing the work without support. Now, let me say this clearly. Lady Sowell is not a persona, it is not a performance. It is a standard rooted in discipline, a standard rooted in integrity, a standard rooted in faith. I don't teach leadership from theory. I teach it from responsibility, from being accountable when things go wrong, from making decisions when there's no perfect answer, from learning how to stay composed when chaos is loud around you. That's why my leadership approach is calm. That's why it's measured. That's why it's intentional, because confidence doesn't announce itself. It shows up prepared. I've learned that leadership is not about control. It's about stewardship. You don't own people, you serve them. You don't dominate environments, you stabilize them. And when leaders lose sight of that, everything becomes about image instead of impact. That's not how I lead. My work sits at the intersection of faith, leadership, and caregiving because those worlds are not separate. How you lead at work is connected to how you live at home. How you manage responsibility is connected to how you manage yourself. Alignment matters. And misalignment always shows up eventually. The reason I'm intentional about this brand is because I've seen what happens when leadership lacks grounding. I've seen teams fracture, families suffer, organizations lose their way. And I've also seen what happens when leadership is rooted, disciplined, and consistent. People thrive, systems stabilize, trust grows. That's the leadership I stand for. So when you hear the name Lady Sowell, understand this. It represents work done quietly, standards upheld consistently, leadership practiced with restraint. It represents faith without performance, authority without ego, confidence without noise, and it represents a commitment to doing things the right way, even when it takes longer, especially when it takes longer. If you are a leader who values substance over spotlight, discipline over drama, and alignment over applause, you are in the right place. This channel is for leaders who don't need permission to lead well, for caregivers who want to give without losing themselves, for people who understand that responsibility requires structure. And let me say this clearly and without hesitation. Leadership is not about access, it is about assignment. Not everyone who has proximity to influence has the discipline to steward it. Not everyone who desires visibility is prepared for responsibility. And not everyone who wants to lead is willing to be accountable when leadership costs something. I have learned that true leadership often looks quiet. It looks like consistency when no one is watching. It looks like restraint when reaction would be easier. It looks like choosing what is right, even when it delays what is comfortable. This is the part of leadership that rarely goes viral. The part where you do the work without recognition. The part where you hold the line even when compromise would be applauded. That is where structure matters. Structure is not rigidity. It is protection. It protects your values. It protects your people. And it protects your capacity to lead over time. Without structure, leadership becomes emotional. Without structure, caregiving becomes depletion. Without structure, purpose becomes pressure. That is why I speak so intentionally about discipline, not control. Discipline. Discipline in how you think, discipline in how you decide, discipline in how you show up consistently. Because leadership that lacks discipline eventually loses credibility. And credibility, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. This channel exists to talk about that part of leadership. The part that doesn't perform well, but functions well. The part that sustains you when the room is silent and the responsibility is heavy. If you've ever felt the weight of leadership and wondered how to carry it without losing yourself, this space was created with you in mind. Here, we talk about leadership that lasts, leadership that is anchored, leadership that is aligned, not leadership that chases attention, but leadership that earns trust. And if that resonates with you, stay here. Because everything shared on this channel is designed to help you lead with clarity, with integrity, and with endurance. Before I close, I want to say this plainly. My name is LaKeesha Sowell, and I am Lady Sowell. I chose the word lady because it represents who I am, not how I look. Elegance isn't about appearance. It's composure, restraint, and clarity under pressure. It's how I lead. It's how I listen. It's how I hold steady when everything around me shifts. Lady Sowell isn't a title I wear. It's a standard I uphold every day, a standard of discipline, a standard of integrity, a standard of leadership that remains grounded, consistent, and calm. So when you hear the name Lady Sowell, understand that it stands for steadiness over noise, structure over chaos, and leadership that endures. I am Lady Sowell, and I lead with discipline.